Hello and welcome to Walk the Walk. Well, today I have a special guest, and I say that about everyone because I only interview special guests. But today I have Karen Murphy Wilson with me. Karen is a Christian mom and a wife. She is married to Brian for nearly 20 years. Karen is a mom also to Eric and Tyler. Now, Karen also works for vocational rehabilitation, and she works with the deaf community. Now, when I first met Karen, she was a student of mine and was setting out to be a sign language interpreter and has taken the skills that she has learned and applied them to the career that she is working now, and I think that's just awesome. We cannot forget to mention that Karen is also a dog mom to both Bear and Cricket. And I think I remember you adopting, I'm not sure which one it was, but it was like, I really wanted that dog. I believe your dog is deaf. Am I correct?
Yeah, actually, both dogs are deaf. So, they're so fun, and they make us laugh a lot. They're a lot of work, but they're really just like every other dog. They're both deaf.
Wow, what a blessing for those dogs to have you as their owner. So
Yeah.
you often people think, why did I learn sign language or why did I do this or that? And it's like, well, there you go. God probably
Yep.
had a plan for those two dogs. And I just want to let everybody know that's listening today that my dog is with me. Yesterday we had our dog put down, and so I'm kind of giving Pokey, my dog, some special attention. So if you hear some noises in the background, she's supposed to be lying down and being quiet, but she's already started to get up and walk around. So I apologize if you hear dog noises in the background, but I am giving her special attention to help her through this grieving process. So Karen, you have a very unique story, although you have a common story too. So there are going to be some people who are listening today that will be able to identify with you. But I think you have a journey of breast cancer, and you have been able to make it through this journey with the help of God. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about that. But if you don't mind, could you just, first of all, I just want to know, tell me a little bit about who you are as a Christian woman.
Yeah. So I grew up in church, at a church in Westerville Nazarene. I went there for most of my life, and then my husband and I actually met there. And then once we got married, we moved to help start a church in Powell called New Start Church, and that's actually now in Delaware. And so we've been really involved in church for a long time, but it's not just about church, it's about your faith, and it's about relationship. And so God's just been a part of my life for a long time, and has helped me through just crazy stuff.
Karen, let me let my listening audience know that when you say Powell, and I'm not sure if you said Delaware, but we're talking about Ohio, because whenever we live someplace, we think everybody knows I mean Ohio. So Karen, is from Ohio, I believe, or lives in Ohio, and she was a prior student of mine at the college there in Ohio. So did you want to continue on with that?
Yeah. So my faith, that's really what it is. I mean, I've just really tried to continue to have a strong relationship with Christ. Life is hard, and so it's great to lean on Him and know that He's taking care of you and bringing good even out of the hard things. And so even before I got diagnosed with cancer, my faith was pretty solid.
So you told me a little bit about how you heard God's voice, or maybe God's nudging. I'm not sure if it was an audible voice or an audible push me off the chair kind of nudging, but can you tell me a little bit about that incident?
Yeah. I was at a celebration of life event for a former teacher who was in hospice and in her final days. And her community and family and friends set up a celebration so that everyone could say goodbye to her. And it was really beautiful. Just that, I mean, wow, I've really challenged my perspective of how we do death and how we say goodbye to people and celebrate them after they've passed. And what a great way to celebrate somebody and honor them while they're still here. And so I was at this event. It was outside. It was September of 2020, and COVID was still a thing, but it was just beautiful, beautiful fall day. And I was just completely focusing on what was happening, and I felt God kind of nudge me, not a physical nudge, but just like a nudge to my soul. And I really wanted to like brush it off. Like, what do you mean? I'm not, this lady's going through this. I want to be there for her and see my friends and support her. But I'm like, what are you doing? And I kind of brushed it off. And I think that's just God working on me, because he knows us all so well and how we're going to handle hard things. And some people just need to have the hard news right there in that moment, and other people need some time to let it simmer. And I need some time to let it simmer. So that was the first indicator that something's different. And I was diagnosed with cancer December 7th of 2020, so 3 months later. And I didn't know that at that time I had cancer growing in me. And my doctors say that I probably had it for about a year. It was slow growing before I was diagnosed.
And so I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm going to let you continue because you're probably going to answer my next question. Go ahead.
A lot of people ask how I found it, how I knew. I had just felt a bump while I was showering. And so it wasn't painful or anything, but it was different. And I thought, So I immediately called my doctor, got an appointment like a couple days later. And from the time that I felt the bump to the time that I was diagnosed was only 3 weeks. So it was a very fast process because I had met with the doctor, and then I did a mammogram, and then they led me to an ultrasound, and then a biopsy, and then the results of the biopsy. So that was very fast. However, which is great, that they are so quick at being able to come up with this, this system. It's unfortunate so many women go through this, and men get it too, but that they have it so that you're not waiting a long time. But during that time, I really felt God I was clinging to Him, like, God, my gut told me this is going to be cancer. And when I would start to think about it, I'd kind of be like, Lord, I'm not going to totally go there because I don't want to get freaked out if it's nothing. But He slowly worked on me, and I remember specific songs that would come on, and it was just what I needed to hear in that moment. And God knew that it was like He was right there with me saying, Karen, I'm right here with you. And when the doctor called me December 7th, that night, I knew the answer before she even, I saw it pop up on my phone, and I knew. I just already knew it was cancer. It's like God had been telling me this whole time in His loving, kind way, Karen, it's going to be cancer. And so when she called me, I was in my car with my son, and we were driving around, and I pulled over, and I talked with her, and she said, hey, we're going to meet tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the treatment plan. And I had this calm and this peace that it does not make any sense. It defies rationality to have peace in that moment, but it's like I had to just kind of, it wasn't a surprise to me. I just knew. God just, with every day, it was like, Karen, it's going to be hard. You got to trust me. And I already knew when she called that it was going to be cancer. So that started yeah, go right ahead.
And you answered my question. Yes, you did. You went right to it. How did you know? Karen, can you tell me, can you remember what your first real conversation with God was after your diagnosis?
Yeah. That night I came home. So my husband worked for a very long time, worked second shift. So I was with my boys at home that night. And I came home and I sat my youngest down. And this was hard because I had to tell my husband over the phone that I had cancer while he's at work. Poor guy. And then I sat them down and I told them, and I was crying, but I said, look, the doctor said of all the kinds this is the most treatable. And he doesn't think that this is going to get me, and that I'll probably die when I'm 90. And, I'm just giving them little bits. And I said, boys, I don't know what this is going to mean, but this is what's going to happen. And I trust God. And I tried to keep it short and sweet, but I never tried to hide what was really happening. And that night, I just remember I broke down, and I was said, God, I don't know how I'm going to be able to tell my family. Oh man! So the next day, I said, Brian and I decided we're not telling our family until we figure out the treatment plan. So that was just so God was with us every step, even with my husband was such a huge help for me because I could not think straight. I was so sort of lost and fumbling over what to do next. And he'd say, so we met with the doctor the next day, and then he said, okay, Karen, we need to call your parents. And then he'd say, okay, we need to call my parents. And then I'm like, every time just breaking this horrible news to the people that we love the most, that was really hard. And he was so good at giving Brian strength and clarity to help me communicate that to them. It's just every time I turned around, God was just exactly what I needed, exactly what we needed right in that moment. And
that's awesome. I'm going to, as a Christian, and we both are, many people think that we don't experience fear. And if we do, it shows weakness in our faith. Tell me about your fear and your faith.
This is a great topic because I went through so many different emotions, and I remember kind of feeling guilty about certain things, like when I had surgery, or then when I was decided that I needed to have chemo. When we made that decision, my oncologist denied to do that. That made me cry, and I freaked out about having to have chemo. That got me more than my cancer diagnosis. And another oncology nurse, she said that's incredibly common, and a lot of cancer patients respond the same way, which I thought was very interesting. And I think fear it's a natural response. God gave us this emotion of fear as a way to protect us. Fight or flight. We're in a potentially dangerous situation. We have this normal response for fear. Yet we can also have faith at the same time. So I was very scared to have chemo, and I bawled and I said, God, please take it away from me. I don't want to walk this, but if I have to do it, Lord, give me the strength. And he did. And I was a nervous wreck, and it was tough. It was really tough to go through. I experienced weird things that most people don't experience with chemo. I was like, had symptoms that less than 10% people experience that were given my chemo blend. So I went through some stuff that not many people do, and I hope people listening aren't freaked out if I talk about it in such a negative way, because I had a different experience with it. But I realized that it was just so clear to me that my faith didn't waver, but having fear is okay. And that you can even have joy and grief at the same time. You can have peace and fear at the same time. You can have hope and you can have doubts at the same time. We think we can compartmentalize everything, and that a good Christian is not going to experience fear. Well, you can bet Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were freaking out when they're standing there in a fire, right? Like they're going to get thrown. They are having fear, but that doesn't mean they didn't have faith. So like learning that about myself and about others, and just to be real, that it's okay to feel this stuff, and it's okay to be real with God, and that He wants us to be genuinely real with Him. And that's the danger, I think, is trying to say, I'm strong and I believe in Him, and so I'm not going to be afraid, and then feeling guilty for being afraid, and then trying to put on a show where God wants us just as we are, and He's not going to be mad that we're scared. He just wants us to trust Him even though we are scared.
That's a great explanation of being a faithful Christian, but we still have fear. And I just think that's a big misconception that people have of us. Like, well, if you have so much faith, why are you afraid? Because I'm a human being, and that's the way it works. What are the misconceptions of breast cancer and chemo?
So this one is a little bit, that question is a little bit, I feel like I need to preface this. So a lot of people, first of all, the absolute love and community and support that myself and my family has received from all of this has been absolutely humbling and overwhelming. And people will say things out of their love and out of their encouragement and from a place of love. So I'm never mad when somebody says this, but I hear it differently. And it's funny because I've heard people say things like this all the time, but when you're in the situation, you don't really pick it apart until later. But people will say, you're a fighter, or you're a rock star, you're a warrior, or you're going to kick cancer's butt. You know, you're going to fight through this. And that is all from a place of love. And I will never be frustrated with somebody that says that to me. But there's also this part of me that says, well, what about the people that didn't make it? What about the people that did everything they could have done and cancer killed them? You know, and people aren't thinking that far, right?
Sure.
So and I'm not saying don't love and support people, but it's just interesting how that can, that made me think, well, gosh, you know, am I a fighter? Am I a warrior? Am I a rock star? Am I kicking cancer's butt? And the truth of the matter is, I have zero control over it. It is 100 in a million% God. And it's His plan and for my life, and He knows how long I'll be here. And it's His say what He allows things to happen. I don't believe cancer is from Him. I don't believe suffering and pain is from Him. But He allows it to happen, and He gives us strength to walk through things that are hard. And so it's because of Him that I was able to get through that. And so that's kind of a misconception. I think I've heard people say, I'm going to be really honest with this, I had a double mastectomy because I just decided I do not want to feel like there's going to be cancer coming back again. So there's lots of different types of reconstruction that people can do. And I chose to, but no matter what type of reconstruction you have, one thing that people don't realize is there's no feeling in my chest. And again, this might be more information than what people want, but some people have said things like, well, hey, at least you get new boobs out of it. And it's funny, and it's true, and I've made boob jokes from it because I have to laugh, and some things are very funny, and I need to laugh. Humor is how we get through hard things. But there's this sense of loss that people don't fully understand. I don't expect them to fully understand, but there is this sense of loss and mourning about how you used to be, and hugs feel different. And so even little things like that just people don't get. And yes, I'm grateful that I'm able to, have reconstruction. That was not always the case for women with breast cancer. That is covered by insurance, so that is a gift, and I'm glad that there's lots of options now. Lots of options. But if anyone is knows somebody that has a mastectomy or has a double mastectomy like I did, just know that there is a sense of loss, and that it takes time to adjust to your body and who you are after that. And so some people will say, hey, getting boobs, that's the deal, but they're not realizing that things are not the same as they were, and that's okay. I'm alive. I would rather, I'm alive. So there's some compromises that had to be made there, but I think that's another big misconception. And again, yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. So
yeah.
You kind of said what people have said, and I probably have said those things as well, thinking I was being encouraging. And I'm sure that you would have thought that, and you just said, I know they're trying to be encouraging. Mm-hmm. What, and you may not even have an answer for this, and that is totally okay. If you had to write the book and you only had one sentence, what advice would you give to me when you think I want to be encouraging? What could I say? And I already heard what you said I shouldn't say, or we shouldn't say. What could somebody say? Is there anything?
There is. And I think just praying, even just saying, this sucks and I'm praying for you. And I love you. And it doesn't have to be even really eloquent, but I think just, I love you, and we're here for you, and I'm praying for you. And as a Christian, I welcome all the prayer. Not everybody feels that way because they maybe don't believe that, but I welcome all the prayer, and I know that God hears it, and that He does amazing things on behalf of people who commit to prayer. And so I don't think there's, and again, I don't want you to feel bad because I've probably said those things to people before too, not realizing it. And I don't get offended when people say that because I know they are trying to love me and support me and cheer me on. And so that's it. I don't want people to feel that, but it's just a misconception. It's something I never thought of before. And I think just saying I love you, I'm praying for you, I'm here for you, those simple things mean a lot. And yeah, that's my advice.
Let me ask you this. And again, I think I'm throwing you a couple curveballs. And again, if you can't answer this, that is okay. Sometimes, and I'm going to say this is true from my situation when Jeff had a brain bleed, other people were impacted in a way that brought them to Christ. Through Jeff's suffering, other people were brought to Christ. That's true for my situation. I don't know if that's true for your situation. I have heard that, and I don't mean for you to name anybody, but did you
Yeah.
see anything change in other people because of your faithfulness?
Um, that's beautiful. What happened with Jeff and what you guys saw, that's amazing. I've not seen something exactly like that, but another God thing was, I remember God saying to me, not in an audible voice, but Him saying, I'm going to use this to heal your family. And, marriage is hard. I love my husband endlessly, but marriage is really tough. And
Yes.
I'm not going to lie, before I had cancer, we were struggling with some pretty big stuff and trying to. And then I had cancer and that diagnosis, and it's like everything just put on the brakes. And it was like, we're in survival mode, and how do we get through this together, and how do we love each other together? And it has changed our marriage, which has changed our family, which has brought healing. And there's still a whole lot of healing and a whole lot of work that needs to continue to happen. But because we were given a taste of mortality and that our time is short, God has brought a level of healing that I don't know would happen otherwise.
Wow.
And yeah.
Karen, thank you for sharing that. I know that was very personal, and I hope that was okay I hope you felt okay to share that with us, because
Sure.
that's exactly what I was wondering, and that is an awesome blessing. And it just seems, and I can hear people saying, well, she had to suffer for that. And well, Christ suffered on the cross for us, while we were all in the middle of our sin. Yeah, you did. You did. And I don't have any words for that other than the fact that you did. And so
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that personal story. So, Karen, tell me, what does the future look like?
It's good. So far, I'm done with all treatments. I have to take a medicine that is really common. A lot of people take tamoxifen, and it blocks your hormones. So in my situation, the cancer was fed by estrogen. And so this medicine basically reduces my estrogen. And so it takes away the food of the cancer. That's thought. So if it does try to grow back, then this will block my hormones and prevent that from happening. I'll probably be on this for 5 to 10 years, but that's the only medicine that I'm on right now. I'm still recovering from some of the effects of chemo. I had 4 treatments of chemo, which sounds, I went into it thinking, this is going to be no big deal. I'm pretty healthy, I'm going to do well. And chemo just kicked my butt. I am not going to lie. That was really tough. And my oncologist told me it would take about a year to recover from it. And so my nails are still weird. My hair's growing in thinly, but it's coming back. So once I get through the recovery process of that from chemo, life is pretty much back to normal. I go to the doctor every once in a while just for routine follow-up. But I am so grateful that the prognosis is really good, and that I feel humbled that I had a taste of this, and other people suffer and have it for an incredibly long time, and their diagnosis is much different. And that's a bit hard to digest too. God, why is this person suffering and having such a hard time and going through so much more chemo and so much more treatment, and their prognosis isn't as good, and then here I am. I got the easy, air quote, that I got the easy time. That's a lot to unpack, but I try to just trust God that He knows what He's doing, and that I'm not going to get answers on everything. And I have to be okay with that.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
we don't have the answers on earth as much as, and I know people, have asked me questions that, like, I don't know the answer to that. God knows, but I don't. And I don't know everything like God knows everything. And
Right.
that makes it challenging. It makes it challenging for us, as Christians, to try to give comfort to other people when they want a definite. Hey, there are times I want a definite answer too, and I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
if there was one thing, and I understand the one thing would be I'd just change the fact that I had cancer. Is there something on this journey that you think, gosh, I wish I would have handled, or I wish I would have done something differently? Is there such a thing for you?
That is a great question. I think I wish I would have journaled more. I think if because I can remember what was happening. There's certain things that are super vivid to me. But if I could have journaled what God was doing and have a more documented account of it, I think that I wish I would have done that. But admittedly, I was pretty overwhelmed with life and surviving and working and family and trying to just keep my head above water. But I wish I would have journaled more, journaled at all. I'm not going to say I did journal. I didn't. I wish I journaled, even a little.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think I would not see anything wrong with you trying to go back and just, even if it's just a little bit,
Right.
picking it up now, just like what you just did with us today was incredible, what you have shared with us. Is there something else that you think, oh, I wish I could have said this and Tina didn't give me the opportunity? Is there something else that you want to share with us before we close?
Yeah. I'll try to make this brief because I'm a talker and I don't want to go on and on. But years ago, our family was involved in a car accident, and another individual lost his life. And because of that, my husband and I, we went through some incredible suffering and wondering, Lord, what did you do? Like, why did you allow this? And we were listening to messages on the radio. And the day after the accident happened, there was a message from Philip DeCourcy, who's a pastor, and he's got a great Irish accent, so it was really fun to listen to him. And he was talking about why does God allow suffering. And so we just clung to those messages. And one analogy that he talked about that was so profound for me, because I couldn't wrap my head around that accident. I can't really wrap my head around cancer, why that happened, how that happened. I really wrestled with why, especially the accident. God, why? My husband and boys walked away from this, and this family's burying their son. Why, Lord? And I've never gotten that answer. But what Philip DeCourcy said is that God does not have a hand in it, like in the suffering. It's not His doing that's causing the suffering, but He has His hand over it. And that God doesn't have a hand in it, He has His hand over it. And that summed it up perfectly to me, that we live in this fallen world where there is sin and things have gone astray, either because of personal decisions and our sinful nature, or because of the fallen world we live in. And that God, even in situations He doesn't necessarily want but allows, His hand is over it. And I could just see Him, even in the accident, protecting us and loving us and providing and caring for us and showering us with grace and mercy to get us through. And then with cancer, the exact same thing. So I am grateful that I had my faith to know that God did not want this. He doesn't want it, but He's got His hand over it, and He's allowing it for reasons I don't understand, but He sees the whole story. And I just see this little piece, this one little picture, and God sees the whole thing. And so it's normal and natural for people to blame God and be angry with God, and that's absolutely normal. But to remember that He didn't cause this. It's not His doing, but His hand is over it. And it was just such a beautiful analogy, and I think about it all the time. God's hand was not in it. His hand is over it.
That's beautiful. That is just beautiful. And you are such, I remember as a student, I thought, she's probably one of the most kindest people I know. You always were just smiling and always kind and supportive. And that's just awesome. Karen, thank you so much. I don't know if this is the first time you've been able to share your story out loud like this. I'm sure you have shared pieces and parts of it, but I don't know if it is, but I feel grateful and I feel blessed that you and I have crossed paths, and that you were feeling so enough that you could share with myself and the listening and reading audience.
I thank you for the opportunity, and I just hope that people see God in it, and that they know that they can just be honest with Him and just say, just to keep the communication open with Him, and to know that it's okay to be frustrated that it's happening. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be depressed. Those are all normal, natural things. But to still have, you can still have faith through that and trust Him. God, this sucks, but I trust you. God, I'm scared, but I trust you. And they're not separate. They can be together. And I really hope that God uses this, and I thank you for the opportunity to share.
Absolutely.
And I just I'm excited to listen to your other podcasts too.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank my listening and reading audience for joining us today. I hope you were touched by Karen's story. And, if you ever, as a listener, are like, what is this God thing all about? That's why I do this, to hopefully, if you need to know and you want to contact me, please feel free to do so. Or if you know somebody who, is a believer, and talk to them. There's nothing wrong with talking to anybody. I see nothing wrong with exploring this. So many people think, I've got to jump in and then I got to do all these things. And it's like, no, if that's what somebody's asking you to do, then you need to find somebody else that tells you, here's what God wants from you. So Karen, thank you so very much for being here with me today and our listening audience. And to my listening audience, I thank you so much for joining us. Have a blessed day.